Got some radio news for you here on One Up Podcasting. Radio Disney is shutting down after 24 years. Now, here's what's going on. Along with Radio Disney Country, which I didn't realize they had a country version of the network, it will be ending operations next year, sometime before the end of the first quarter. Because Disney's now focusing on producing content for Disney Plus and the Disney channels. So because of a lot of turnarounds and layoffs and things like that, they're consolidating. Now, Radio Disney first debuted in 1996, and a lot of stars are very thankful, should be thankful for their rise to stardom. Because you would have heard, more prominently than anything else, the likings of Miley Cyrus, the Jonas Brothers, Demi Lovato, and Selena Gomez, all on this channel. Now, as for Billboard, they talk about the story, and they mentioned that. So 36 full and part-time employees will be laid off as a result. That's along with another wave of layoffs that Disney's already been making so far. Thousands of layoffs at their U.S. theme parks, and more than 100 people, including some senior executives, were laid off at the entire area of Walt Disney Television. Now, there will be a Latin America division that will still continue to be going on. But again, this started in 1996. This is right around the deregulation of radio in the first place. So you're starting getting the national feeling of radio. We never really had a lot of stations that really did that, where you actually had, a national network of one programming. You had it for satellite radio and things like that. But before that, Disney had created this network. And again, this was for preteens and teenagers. So it's a very succinct audience. And they primarily played pop music and songs popularized by Disney Channel shows. By 2005, at its peak, the station was available in 97% of the United States, and including a channel on SiriusXM. And reached about 30 million listeners a week. And in 2009, they opened a studio in Burbank, California. That's where they had their broadcasting headquarters. So the network began reaching its audience on digital and satellite platforms instead of over the air in 2014. And the company started selling 23 stations they had owned and operated. And they were mostly AM stations. Now, in the 90s, the station would actually play artists like Britney Spears and NSYNC, a lot of the boy band stuff, right? A lot of the real super sugary pop stuff. And early in their careers, it was a launching pad for also Hilary Duff, Raven-Symoné, Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Zendaya. Tyler Bickford, who's an associate professor of children's literature and childhood studies at the University of Pittsburgh and the author of Tween Pop, Children's Music and Public Culture, said Radio Disney was definitely the first and one of a kind of most significant events in the development of the tween music industry. Again, this is because when you saw the likings of Nickelodeon making an audience huge and showing there was a market for that kind of market. So like 6 to 12-year-olds, or even up to around 15, 16-year-olds, right? There was something to be said about being able to do that. And Disney Channel did the same thing. And they said, well, okay, this is doing so well. And Disney Channel came into play at the same time. So it was using the radio because why not? And they were able to get some stations on the cheap because these were all AM stations. There were never any FM stations, but they thought, well, let's try to do this. They got on SiriusXM, they got the online stream, and they were doing it. And also they had talent. They had on-air types on the station, which was another thing you have to think about as well. And what's more important is, again, it's another radio station that is gone. And that's what's really unfortunate here, but that's what we have once again happening to a format. And listen, it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but again, it was something that radio did. And it's unfortunate even Wikipedia already now has soon to be defunct American Radio Network. Wow. And it's just unfortunate where they had to go away as they did. But, it's what they had to do. It was started in 1996 in 4 markets: Minneapolis, Atlanta, St. Salt Lake City, and Birmingham, Alabama, by ABC Radio Networks. And interesting enough, it wasn't in Orlando or California necessarily. It was in small markets. Then they decided to go and roll out 28 stations affiliating in August 1998, 63 by the end of 1999. And they even had their own things where they also put, a lot of different programming out there, right? So they had Mickey and Minnie's Toon Time. They had ABC News for Kids, Gross Me Out, and they ran a couple of different initiatives and things. So, it was good quality programming for kids. It wasn't a horrible thing, right? And that's what they did. And it's unfortunate they decided to go and I had to go and drop off. But again, I just think that what they offered was something that was, again, maybe radio wasn't the thing that people are leaking about right now to go and keep kids, how they're kind of relaxed. But I think there was something to be said about what they offered. They did radio. It was kind of, for those that wanted to be in radio, you kind of learned what radio was from this, because they did traditional radio. You get to hear the music you wanted to hear. You could be a part of engaging with the audience there. But more importantly to me, I think the story comes out strong to me is because of the fact that Radio Disney, for what it's worth, it's a bastion of radio that goes away. And I just think that when you talk about how things are going so bad, radio couldn't hold itself up. And again, this was just an easy casualty to put. And it's too bad about this, but they said, well, what are they going to do? And it sucks because now we just see, okay, the Radio Disney audience, I don't know how big of a deal it was or how important it might be, but still, that was the fact that Disney was still related into the terrestrial radio market. I mean, it's just there was something there to be said. I just think it's important. And this was a station that, again, they were all major markets. They had presence. And again, this was something that let people know it was they were on the pulse of what music was out there that people can go and listen to. And it had an identity. And there's something to be said about how they put together, putting songs on that could at least be, you had a chance to get an audience to engage. And it was actually kind of interesting. The music that they actually offered was everything with 60% popular artists and 40% of up-and-coming artists. So this was a place for certain artists to go ahead and be found and discovered. You get a chance to hear new music here. This is the things that radio is supposed to be. To me, this is a big hit to the radio industry in general. It shouldn't have happened. But again, maybe somebody else could have picked it up, but I guess there's nothing they're going to be able to do, and it's too bad. So it's what they decided to go and do, drop it off. Obviously, you always have the other products when it comes to Disney, but again, for radio itself, this is a blow. They lose a network of stations, and they lose a product that was synonymous with engaging and adopting new listeners to the format. Well, no, they're not doing that anymore. And those that might have aspired to go and do radio, make it fun, make it engaging, make it exciting, well, the stations that are corporate owned, they're not doing that, but at least Disney has an identity of being fun and, being entertaining and finding ways to go ahead and go after an audience that's not easy to go ahead and keep engaged. But, it's too bad that this goes on like this and it goes away. But it's what they're going to do. Radio Disney, RIP, 24 years old. Got to be a young adult in the radio world. But again, another casualty to the pandemic when it comes to everything. Didn't worry too much about Quibi going away, but it does kind of hurt a little bit to see Radio Disney go by the wayside. But that's what it is. Anyway, we'll leave it there. I'll talk to you next time.